Well, boys, we just got back from picking this thing up. It's a 924. We're gonna pull her into the garage and have a look at it. There's the model number, just in case you guys were wondering. I'll put that into the description as well. We got it in the garage now. We're gonna be taking a look at it. We're gonna drain the gas. I'm gonna take the shroud off because it doesn't start. So I'm gonna take the heat shroud off here, probably pull the carburetor, flush the gas tank and the fuel line. We'll end up doing draining the oil, see how that looks, and other than that, this thing looks to be in pretty good shape, guys. Well, just taking a look at the belts, it looks like it's got a new auger belt, but it looks like it has an older, maybe a older Kevlar drive belt. Tension seems good on that. And just by using a little quick clamp here, we can check the tension on the auger belt, and as you can see, real loose. So we're gonna have to either adjust this in if it's got a slot, which it does, and I believe that, yeah, you can see that's almost all the way adjusted in. So we're probably gonna have to put a slightly shorter belt on there, as I'm guessing this guy put the wrong belt on it. But I just noticed that this one has a adjustable auger, so you can adjust the tension on your auger cable, and we just got to pull up this rubber boot here. We can adjust that, so we might not have to change the belt after all. Okay, so this is your auger and gauge cable. This part comes off of your handle at the top, and that spring goes on the bottom. There's that little boot I'm talking about. So we're going to slide that back, and then you can see that this is just a threaded rod, and if we go back here, you can see that there's a nut onto it. So what we're going to do is move that nut up so that it shortens this cable here slightly, and that'll give us more tension on our when we engage the auger. Using a small adjustable wrench, and because the head of this nut is pretty stripped anyways, because it's been inside of that spring, and you could see that, you know, somebody's been trying to crank on it, just rounded that off. So I'm using a pair of locking pliers, because it doesn't really matter. That's just a stopping point. So I'm just gonna tighten that nut up to about here, and pop this cable back in, and then check our tension again. So we went ahead and just finished adjusting that nut there, and as you can see, you know, the belt's loose right now, but when you pull it, you can see it's tightening things up a lot more. So I'll go ahead and put the quick clamp on there, and then I'll show you how much play it has. Okay, so with the quick clamp on there, we come down here, take a look, and you can see already that just by adjusting that cable, we got about, I'd say about a ½ inch of play. That should be perfect, guys. Now before we fire this thing up and, you know, just start running the auger, I'm going to make sure that it's got grease. Yeah, you want to make sure that your gearbox in the center there has gear oil, and then you want to make sure that if your auger has any grease nipples onto it, you want to make sure you pump some grease into there. Like I said in a previous video, we use cold temperature grease because that's what you want to do, right? This thing's going to be used in the wintertime only, so we'll go ahead and grease all that up, and we'll do that before we try it out, just to make sure that if, you know, there's anything that's rusty or whatnot, that you know, you don't want to get stuff all bound up or break nothing, right? And like I said, I went ahead and took off the gas tank so that we could drain the line, and then we'll flush the line out. This fuel line looks like it's in real good condition, so we don't have to replace that. But now's a good time, like I always say. We're going to remove this, which is just the gas tank hanger. That also, this bolt here holds this heat shroud in as well. But we're going to go ahead and remove that and check the starter bolts under there, which I can see there's 2 there, and there is 2 in here, which is good. But we're just going to go ahead and check those, make sure they're tight. Like I said in the last video, guys, normally what happens is those starter bolts fall out, and then, you know, you got all sorts of problems. Then after that's done, we'll go ahead and drain the oil, just to check the oil right now. Oh yeah, it's pretty black, guys. Definitely needs changing. Yeah, as you guys can see, this oil is pretty black, so we'll go ahead and change this oil. drain it first, and then once we got the oil drained, we can flip it up, and then we can check the access panel underneath, inspect the friction wheel. But all in all, we picked this up for a pretty good deal. It didn't run, but we went ahead and checked took the spark tester with us, and we checked the spark, made sure that it had spark. It's got tons of compression, so that's good as well. And you know, it seemed like it's in pretty good shape, so we got it for a decent deal, and a little bit of time, a little bit of labor into it, and we'll have ourselves a good machine, boys. Well, this one's got a E3 plug onto it. You can see this is the kind with the tip there. That's different than normal spark plugs. But as you can see, you know, we got an old RJ. Well, that's a LM49 AC Delco, but basically it's the exact same as a RJ19 LM. So got a new spark plug, don't have to replace that. That's a bonus. So I don't know if you guys remember or not, but I did a video about having the plastic wrap on the garage door here, and just to prove to you guys, it's currently minus 12 now. Feels like maybe minus 15 with the wind chill, and we got our big garage door open, and we just got you know, that closed up there. But even with the heat off, if you guys can see that, it's about 72, which is about 22 maybe degrees Celsius, and it's nice and warm in here. And this basically just traps the heat inside of the garage, gives us a lot of light in here, and yeah, I mean, beauty for working. Okay, so we flipped this thing up, got the oil drained out of it. We're gonna pull the access panel off, but you can just see that this guy definitely, got into the stones. We'll hit that with some rust check afterwards. All in all, looks to be in pretty good condition. Well, we took the access panel off there, and I'll probably end up wiping down this disc here. It's not bad. So again, we're using some Mystic low temp extreme grease for the shifter shaft. We'll put that on. We'll lube up the chain and everything. But all in all, everything seems to be a working order. There's your proof that you want to be greasing your shaft. So I had it into 6 gear, which on this machine brought it all the way over to the right side, and I went ahead and lubed the left side of the shaft there. But as you can see, the right side of the shaft is pretty rusted, so when I went to shift it back, it didn't go right away. So it's a good thing, because now that the friction wheel's on this side, I can go ahead and lubricate that, and it should shift from 6 all the way to the second reverse nice and easy. Okay, so now when we go to shift it, you guys can see that this thing, look at how free that thing moves now, boys. With just a little bit of grease onto it, this thing shifts real nice. That's the way you want it. Now, if you guys remember, a couple videos ago, I did one on us fixing really loose shifter linkage, and we ended up having to you know, modify it with like a bolt inside of there to hold everything together, because you know, didn't matter how many washers you had in there, it would just fall out of the shifter linkage. Well, on this one you can see that, like, if I show you guys, that's solid. That's how it's supposed to be. And you know, this split bushing in there is not worn out. It's all good. I went ahead and greased both of the chains with the same low temperature grease that I used for the friction wheel shifter. And yeah, guys, we went ahead and took a little bit of the oil and wax remover and did the disc. Filled the tires with 22 psi of air. They didn't have any in there, but these are basically brand new tires, so they should hold air. We'll go ahead and I think we're gonna just hit the bottom access panel here with a little bit of dark green paint. It was a little rusty. We'll put the access panel back on, flip it down, and that'll be our chance to take this heat shroud off and have a look at the carburetor. We'll have a look at the issue of no starting, because that's what the guy said, it wouldn't start, and that's why we knocked a bit of the price off from what he was asking. It's little things like this. See how that's just a little bit loose. So for the 2 seconds it takes to to tighten that nut up there. So now, when you move that, it still rotates up front, which will lube all of this. Here's a good time to show you guys. You want to do your little universal joint right there, and then you want to do the gear right down there. So we'll go ahead and lube that up with some low temp grease. So a little bit of grease onto there, guys. You can see we got some grease onto the gear down here, and a little bit of grease on the universal. And look how easy it turns now. So a little bit of grease, and like, you know, the 30 seconds that it took to do that, and you know, that just improved it. We got the shroud off, and I'm gonna end up going and lubricating this because you guys can see it's a little bit rusty, a little bit crusty, and there's a little bit of resistance onto that, especially right there. So I'll go in and lubricate that with some maybe some release all, and take this carburetor off here with number 3 Phillips, and go ahead and get that carb off, clean it, make sure all of the intake neck bolts and everything else is tight. Well, we got the carb all cleaned up, so I'll throw it back together, and we'll put it back onto the machine. And when you're putting your carb back together, you just want to make sure that your float is perfectly level, and that'll ensure that your machine gets the right amount of fuel. So now, putting the sediment bowl back onto the carburetor, your float opens this way, right? So you want to make sure that the high side of your sediment bowl is to the side that it opens, just like that. And I just wanted to add that now is a good time to adjust that little torque screw there. That's your throttle backing screw, right? It sets your throttle. So that's wide open throttle, that's all the way off. The carburetor all cleaned and assembled, and we're just going to blow out the fuel line. We already flushed the tank, but we're just going to blow out the fuel line to make sure that there's no sediment in there. Okay, so this is your choke here, and it's got a little bit of resistance onto it, so I'm going to hit it with some release all right in here, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same for this linkage here. So as you guys can see, way better and way better. Just a little bit of release all. I like using this instead of WD-40 because it's more of like almost like an oil, right? It's a real good lubricant. We'll go ahead, put this shroud back on, flip it up, put the access panel back onto it, put some oil into it, and then fire it up. There you have it, guys. That's it. So for maybe I don't know, half an hour of labor, this thing's going to be good to go. I haven't put oil in it yet because we want to put some fresh oil into it and then flush that out. Open up the cap, your oil cap right there. Open that up until clean oil starts coming out of it, and then we'll recap that. We'll put some oil into it, 5W30. I like to leave the belt cover off when I start it, just so that I can see the belts, make sure that, you know, the belts aren't too loose, aren't too tight, make sure that the tension's good. But once we fire it up and I know that it drives and the auger turns and everything's good, I'll go ahead and put that belt guard back on. We hit it with some rust check. You can see there, we're not going to paint it because we don't have a dark green that's as dark as that. But yeah, guys, that's it. That's how to redo a snowblower and you know, get it from non-working to working condition. Couple primes. Fired right up, boys. You fired right up. Runs good. This thing runs awesome. It fired right up. So now I'm going to fire it up again, and then I got our quick clamp here, you can see, and I'll put that onto the auger, make sure that's spinning, make sure it goes into gear, and this thing's done basically. Got a quick clamp on there. Auger's running. Drive, put her into reverse, goes back. That's it, boys. I'll get that belt guard back onto it and get some pictures and throw it up onto Kijiji. That's it. So if you guys liked the video, like, comment, subscribe. I upload weekly, and as always, thanks for watching.